Welcome back to Afternoon Live. With 70 to 80% of immune cells being present in the gut, your digestive system plays a crucial role in your overall health. So how do you heal your gut when things aren't right? We'll find out now as we welcome the author of Foundational Wellness, the simple system that ends Doctor Dependency Forever, functional medicine specialist, Dr. Vohn Watts. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me today.
Well, tell me about what we should understand about our microbiome, because we've got this whole ecosystem living in our body, right?
Yeah, the microbiome, it's really one of the most important things to pay attention to. And oftentimes we think about it's just in the gut, but actually the microbiome is throughout the body. And so, but the gut is one of the most important organs outside of the brain that we really need to pay attention to.
And there's a connection there, right? Things that are happening in our gut can actually impact the function of our brain?
Well, absolutely, yeah. So over 90%, most people are aware of the neurotransmitter serotonin, right? That's the one that makes us feel happy and we feel good. So over 90% of serotonin is created in the gut before it crosses what's called the blood-brain barrier, as well as other like dopamine and GABA. So a lot of our neurotransmitters are first created in the gut and then it goes to the brain. So if we don't have good gut health, we're also going to have a struggle with good brain health.
That kind of makes sense, how the gut becomes the control center of our body, right? We might think of it the opposite way, like the brain begins everything, but it sounds like the gut is really where things begin to happen.
Yeah, actually the gut is kind of in the functional medicine world, the terminology is the second brain, because we really think of the brain as the switchboard that controls everything in the body. Well, the gut is probably the second biggest organ that controls so many different processes within the body. So, for example, we already talked about neurotransmitters. 80% of immune cells are located in the gut. The gut controls the majority of the inflammation in the body. Our thyroid hormones convert in the gut. So there's a lot of different processes, physiological processes that the gut controls. It's not just the brain, it's not just digestion, it's so much more than that.
So what are some signs to look out for that your gut might need some extra help?
So the first thing I usually tell people is you look at your bowel movements, right? You should have healthy is to have 2 to 3 bowel movements a day, or really the rule of thumb is a bowel movement after a large meal. But I usually tell patients I like to see at least 2 bowel movements a day. If you're not seeing that, then you're at the beginning stages of some gut issues. The other thing along with that is some people start to develop sensitivities to certain foods that they didn't have before, which is usually an indication of another gut issue called leaky gut, or the medical terminology is gut permeability, where basically it's that protective barrier between your gut and your bloodstream. So it doesn't allow things into the blood that doesn't belong there. And when you have those what called tight junctions between the cells, when they open up, it starts allowing things into the blood that don't belong, which will in turn create an immune response. So if you're able to eat certain foods and then now suddenly 5 years later you're having issues and breakouts and sensitivities with it, that's usually a pretty key indication there's some gut dysfunction.
I think so many people have heard that, though. They've developed this intolerance to a certain food group or a type of food, and they think it's linked to the ingredients. But how do you decipher if it is really more of a leaky gut issue?
So that's the first question I ask, because a lot of patients come in and say, can I get a food sensitivity test? And I usually talk them out of it, to be candid, because you know if you're usually have an issue, like for example, people that are lactose intolerant, they know that they're going to have a major, issue if they take something with lactose. So I usually, the first question I ask is, did you have a problem with this food 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? And if you didn't, that's usually an indication that it's not the food, it's more than likely gut permeability or leaky gut.
What about things like anxiety or depression? What are some symptoms that could be linked to the gut in those cases?
So it's the same thing. So any kind of like gut dysfunction, whether you're bloated, your food sensitivities, you have irregular bowel movements, any of those things are going to affect the way your microbiome is able to create neurotransmitters. So any little gut dysfunction can affect your ability to create those neurotransmitters at the level you're supposed to create them. So, and there's a lot of individuals, you're seeing more and more people with anxiety, and it's really, in my personal opinion, I think it's more gut dysfunction than it is anxiety. It's a gut dysfunction leading to anxiety.
Okay, I understand that connection. What about something like irritable bowel syndrome? A lot of people have either been diagnosed or maybe they're self-diagnosing. Is it kind of a catch-all term, and does that cover some of the stuff that we've been talking about?
Yeah, you can be dealing with leaky gut stuff, but really, when I think irritable bowel syndrome, you're usually dealing with a much more bigger disruption in the microbiome. So some individuals develop things called SIBO, which is called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That's when we always have good and bad bacteria in the gut. It's just we usually have much higher good bacteria than bad. And SIBO, what it is like a reverse of that. We don't have enough good and there's too much bad. So the biggest cause of that is usually somebody going on a round of antibiotics. My biggest thing and my biggest advice is when you go on a round of antibiotics to kill off a bacterial infection, make sure that after you're done with that round that you find a really good pre-probiotic. There's lots of them on the market. And there's some that have really good research behind them. So just do your research, go pick out a really good one, but make sure to do that after being on a round of antibiotics because that will really help to regrow the good bacteria. If you don't do that, what happens is it can take the body up to 2 years to completely regrow the microbiome in the gut. And then you're leaving it up to the environment that you're exposing it to. And in this world of ultra-processed food, that's a big recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's a big consequence for maybe 7 or 10 days of medication that you've just taken. Are there other simple steps or solutions you offer to people to get moving in the right direction to get some healthier practices for our gut?
Well, absolutely. One of the big ones is try to avoid ultra-processed foods. I take diet as a real simple thing. I take the 80-20 rule. If you can eat healthy 80% of the time, your body is meant to kind of filter out some of the garbage. And then eat whole food, eat real food. So I always say if it grows on the ground, in the ground, swims or flies, you're good to go. If it comes out of a bottle, package, or can, try to stay away from it or make that your 20%, right? So that's the first one. Excess consumption of alcohol can also be a big factor, but one to stay away from. But one of the other good things is for those that like fermented foods, so like kimchi, sauerkraut, there's a lot of drinks that you can buy now that are fermented. That's one of the best ways, and I actually prefer that over supplements. I usually tell people to get supplements if they're not going to eat the fermented food, but the preferable way is to eat fermented foods. That's how you're going to grow the microbiome. Also, fibrous vegetables will also help feed that microbiome as well.
Simple stuff. I mean, these are easy switches we can make. You just have to be reminded sometimes, right, that it is worth making that investment in your body and your brain.
Absolutely. It's usually one of the biggest culprits of most conditions that I deal with. So I kind of specialize in Hashimoto's in my practice, which is autoimmune thyroid. And I can tell you 100% of those patients that have come in my office all have a majorly dysfunctional gut. And so it's usually when you're dealing with some kind of autoimmune condition, IBS, you're dealing with some kind of brain stuff. They've even started linking ADHD and some of these other issues, brain issues to gut dysfunction. And so that is the very first place I start when working with any patient is going right to the gut. Let's see what's going on. Let's provide some good nutrients and some good pre and probiotics to it to really get it functioning the way it was designed.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much for sharing some of your advice with us today. It was great chatting with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, Dr. Watts' book, again, is Foundational Wellness, the simple system that ends Doctor Dependency Forever. We'll have more information on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.